Hi, thanks for watching. This is Jessie, and I am going to be discussing Helltown by Sherman. And it is the story of the Cape Cod killer from back in the 60s, Tony Costa. And this book is oh so brutal. It follows Tony, who is a drug dealer in this small East Coast town, and he has a little following of girls who call him the sire. And he starts dating this one girl, or he starts seeing her, and he invites her out to Truro Woods to see his marijuana patch, and then he kills and mutilates her. And like I said, there's some parts in this book that I just had to skip over because Sherman he has no problem, no qualms, no scruples about describing in disgusting, horrendous, heartbreaking, nightmarish detail what happened to these victims. And you can only read, he had his long knife and sliced off this part of her body so many times. I mean, these girls were decapitated, they were dismembered, they were buried, oh my goodness, he took out parts of their body. It was just absolutely horrendous. And so Sherman creates a whole readable storyline about Tony Costa. He puts himself in Tony Costa's shoes. He tries to imagine what was going through Tony Costa's mind, because allegedly Tony Costa had an alter ego named Corey Devereaux who committed the murders. And so you have this dialogue at times between Corey and Tony, where Tony is telling Corey that he doesn't want to kill the girl, and Corey is basically saying, no, you're going to do this because if I go down, you go down because I'm you. It's really unnerving. And there's a lot of tangential events in history that are happening at the time. He touches on JFK. He touches on Bobby Kennedy, who got into an accident and killed, or not Bobby Kennedy, maybe it was Bobby Kennedy. He touches on one of the Kennedys who gets into an accident and kills the secretary of one of the other Kennedys, and he walks away from the scene because he can't get her out, and apparently he didn't try too hard to get her out. And it touches on Norman Mailer, and it touches on Kurt Vonnegut, and it touches on Charlie Manson, and it's just this whole thing that the epicenter is Tony Costa. And so Norman Mailer and Kurt Vonnegut are small town novelist rivals. At the beginning, Vonnegut is absolutely jealous of Mailer's success. He doesn't think that Mailer writes well enough to deserve the success that he's enjoyed, and there's things that happen in Mailer's life that are more pronounced, I guess, by the media than are actually truthful, which rankles Vonnegut even more. And Vonnegut, it goes over some of Vonnegut's past too, which is really interesting, about what happened to him in Dresden and while he was in the military, how he has severe PTSD from those days. He was I believe, a prisoner of war, and just nightmarish stuff that happened to him, which is eventually what led him to Slaughterhouse-Five, writing Slaughterhouse-Five. And so Vonnegut has this daughter named Edie, and he thinks Edie mentions Costa at some point. And so when this blows up and he sees that this could potentially be a story, he calls Edie and he's like, hey, can you tell me what you know about Tony Costa? What did you guys do? Did you guys hang out? What did he say? And Edie's like, I don't know if I actually knew him. I think I met him around, he might have ran in some of the same circles of friends that I did, but I didn't know him. Vonnegut wasn't happy with that, and he convinces the district attorney to let him talk to Costa after Costa's arrested for these murders. And at this point, Costa is telling his legal team and the police and everybody and himself that he didn't commit these murders, that he knows who committed these murders, and he can prove that Corey Devereaux committed these murders. Now, something about Corey Devereaux. Corey Devereaux was this kid at Tony's high school that Tony didn't like, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was maybe Corey Devereaux was dealing marijuana also and kind of encroaching on his territory or something. I can't remember what it was. But he named his alter ego Corey Devereaux, and so he's telling the police that Corey Devereaux killed these girls, and so they go pick up this kid, and this kid is like, "Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about." And the thing is, Corey Devereaux sold Tony Costa the gun that he used to shoot some of these girls, and so they kind of have to look at that avenue, but it doesn't pan out, and they realize that there's no way that this kid could have done this. There's a lot of speculation about whether or not Tony had help, because nobody can imagine the brutality and the strange neuroticness that had to have been involved or had to have been in a person's mind to have done these things. And it is just absolutely, oh my gosh, it was so horrible. Tony does some stupid things. Like, he thinks that he's not only God's gift to women, but he thinks he's a genius also. And you can see this. There's mommy issues there's some severe mommy issues. He was not happy that his mom remarried and had another kid with his stepdad. But she didn't help the situation any, because she got him out of a lot of sticky situations, and she was a champion for him when, I mean, oh my goodness. And then he was a snitch also. Okay. And there's so many things going on. It's kind of hard to talk about this book because it's just all over the place. And there were times where some of the narrative, I would get so involved in Vonnegut's story or Mailer's story that when it went back to Tony Costa, it was a shock. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is what it is. But Tony Costa, what was I talking about? I was going to say something about his mom, I think. I can't remember. But it's a very disturbing book. I don't know that I can recommend it solely because it's so graphic. After Tony Costa is arrested and indicted and they go through the trial, and he's livid with his lawyers because his lawyers pull out his ex-wife and try to get her to paint him in a bad light because of their sexual exploitations, I guess. I don't really know how to describe what happened in that marriage. She was 13 when they got married, or 14. She was 13 when she got pregnant, 14 when they got married. He was like, I don't know, 18 or 19, 17, something. It was that in itself was disturbing. And so they bring his ex-wife to testify, and she's like, no, I still love him, and it wasn't weird, and I wanted to do these things. And I mean, I'm sure the rest of the courthouse was looking at her like, oh my goodness, you poor thing, you need therapy. But she wasn't the only one who was obsessed with Tony. There's these group of girls who called themselves witches, and they would go around yelling and screaming at Mailer, and they liked Kurt Vonnegut, so they would talk to him. But Mailer, like, they would scream at and curse, and there were other people, like journalists throughout town, that they would curse, that they said were ruining Tony's life and that he didn't do this, and they knew he didn't, and they were slandering his name, and oh my goodness. So one of the girls, though, and this is allegedly made up on Sherman's part because it was never proven. There was the Lady of the Dunes, which is a girl who was murdered and buried on a beach. And she was mutilated and decapitated. Her hands were cut off. It was just Tony Costa all over again. But by the time this happened, Tony Costa was dead. He committed suicide in his cell, like the coward that he was. And because he just, I don't know. It wasn't that he couldn't deal with it. It was that he thought that he had said all he needed to say. And Corey was like, we did it, we achieved fame. And so he hangs himself with his belt. He ends up biting his tongue off and peeing his pants, and the guard finds him, and they say he looks like a vampire, which is an allusion to the fact that the district attorney went on the news and said that there might be a vampire in Cape Cod, which was absolutely ridiculous. The district attorney was stupid. Like, oh my goodness. Anyways, so this lady in the dunes, mutilated and dismembered, Tony Costa's already dead. And so they know it's not him, but it has similar qualities. And so Sherman takes this unsolved mystery and makes it into one of the witches was completely obsessed with Tony Costa, and even after the other two kind of moved on with their lives, they got married, etc. This girl, first of all, she tried to kill Mailer, but Mailer scared her off. She was going to kill him with a shucking knife for oysters, and he felt like she was going to come after him because they were just so obsessed with him. And so he was sitting in his cabin with a shotgun. He nodded off, but he had a sleeping problem, which caused him to wake up when he heard something outside. And he's got this gun pointed at this teenage girl who has a shucking knife and scares her away. And so Sherman imagines that years later, she lures a girl to the beach, and she may have had a relationship with her on the beach, and then while the girl is naked on a blanket, she goes and gets dressed, pulls out a hammer, and proceeds to bash this girl's head in. And so, I mean, it makes sense where Sherman was going with this because of the similarities between the Lady of the Dunes murder and the murders that Tony Costa committed. But again, it's artistic license in this. This made my head hurt. I don't know if this is your cup of tea. It certainly wasn't mine. I will definitely not be reading anything else by Sherman because I feel like I was having nightmares. I might not remember them, but I feel like I was having nightmares while I was reading this book. And it took me so long to read it. It just kept going and going and going. Oh my goodness. Like, this book was huge for what it was. It was like, I think it was over 500 pages long. It was huge. I don't know. It makes me want to go back and read, I don't know, like The Last Unicorn or The Never-Ending Story or something. It was just so horrible. But there it is. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe below.